Chadwick.
Yes, Michael.
Welcome to the Hokma Lounge. Welcome to the Hokma Lounge. Here we are. Yeah, so Hokma Lounge, you want to know what that's from?
Yeah.
You want to know what that's for?
You need to explain that.
All right, well, Hokma is the Hebrew word that Solomon used in the Old Testament, of course, and it means wisdom. It means skill in living precisely, or more precisely. It's the actual skills. And it really ties into the whole idea in the New Testament, like the Greek word of Sophia. It means the actual skills of becoming in your craft, becoming skilled in your craft, or a master craftsman. So this is the lounge, the master craftsman, or the Hokma, wisdom, skill in living lounge. So that's where we are.
A great name.
So
Yes.
we've got to talk about the journey that you've been on in the patterns that look like X. So where do we begin? Maybe start us where do you want to begin? What it's been almost 2 decades now?
Almost looks, it's 15 years.
15 years.
Yeah. 15
So
plus. Yeah. 15 plus.
So you're in southern India.
Yes.
You're in the city of Chennai.
True.
Is where you've started. But tell us how you got into these patterns and why you're continuing to work with your churches this way.
The first approach was because I got introduced into the Vision 2020, the large vision back in India.
Yeah.
And that's how I got introduced to build, more so with the Gordon Conwell Doctor of Ministry program.
Okay.
And that's when I started to process these materials and the tools that Bill had produced by then. And by the time we were going through the 5-year process of the Doctor of Ministry program, that's when I started to wrestle with these, the paradigm and all of that, because all that I wanted to do when I first came in was to really frame in a defense for the megachurch, because that's where I come from.
You come from a megachurch.
Yes.
Okay. So you said you had I have 2 questions now all of a sudden. Tell us a little bit about the megachurch, but also tell us what do you mean you wrestled with the paradigm? What does that mean?
So basically, you come from a large size church. So our church actually began in 1973, and by the time I had encountered with the principles and the paradigm, we were almost like 35 years into the process. And so we were 30,000 people. And we have our Sunday morning services. And of course, it was a cell-based megachurch out of a church in Singapore that had really taught us about how we can have those small groups that happen across the city. Our churches were really promoting people to be engaged in the work, in the church, and things like that. But here comes a whole idea of, hey, these houses are true communities that are not just like a family, but they are a family. And to come to the understanding that we just don't process a Sunday morning service just as a religious service, but are truly being established in the teachings. And so all of those thoughts became the greatest challenges. Yeah.
So what does it mean to wrestle? You wrestled 15 or so years ago with the patterns. What do you mean by that?
One of the shocking discoveries for me was I started to question whether the megachurch can be really fully acknowledged as a church, or is it a gathering of crowds curious? And so I still remember working through those issues and classifying the megachurch with 3 kinds of people that come and go on a Sunday morning. And one would be the crowds curious, who just come for various reasons. And then there are the convicted, convinced. Okay. They are convicted, convinced of the teachings, but are not really moving on to be the committed, commissioned disciples of Jesus Christ. So
Okay.
those are the three categories that I came up with and say, hey, there is a church within the megachurch, or idea
Okay.
of what Luther and the early reformers came up with, ecclesiola and ecclesia, which means there is an authentic community of disciples of Christ growing to become and maturing to become a family within the larger crowds that come and go.
Okay, so you're wrestling with, you have a large crowd that gathers, large crowds that gather.
Yeah.
You've parsed them up into
Yeah.
helpful but overly simplistic in reality,
Yes.
because everyone's an individual. So what happened from there? What good is it to do that?
So when you start to, so it all depends on like where do you put your priorities and how much of time you spend, where you spend.
So you begin to evaluate your priorities and what you're going to do.
Priorities are programs, because megachurch is driven by a lot of programs, and you have a lot of events that you got to conduct one after the other to keep the people engaged, and people sign up for those programs and things like that. So now really needed to concentrate on those who are not just individuals who are coming to the building and going out of the building or attending our programs, but that those who would truly be part of a community and truly grow up in the teachings of Christ to become a family.
So how did you, then you've got to ask, how did you begin to take people that had an expectation of coming to an event, and how did you begin to teach them and train them and develop them in the ideas that we can be a family?
Yeah.
And who'd you train first? What did you train them in? How did the training go?
2009 end. It was in December of 2009, 2010 early part that I just approached the church with regards to, hey, can we start doing the first principles for our church? And then I was just given permission to, hey, you can do this just amongst the English and don't mess up everywhere. Just concentrate on a small little place. And so
take a bite-sized piece. Take a portion and
take a portion and maybe test it out and see whether this works or not works. And so given that permission, I went to the English congregation and spoke to the leaders at that point of time that have really helped. It started in 99 in the morning. We started to gather the English in the morning from 99. And so it's been a 10-year period, and we had all those events and large events, and we've been very successful.
From 99 up until 2009.
2009, yes.
Okay, so then 2009
is when I
follow you. You begin to take that group of leaders who are putting on those Sunday morning events in the English, and you did something.
Yeah, so it was 10 families that were there at that point to talk to them and say, hey, we got to come together to study.
10 families in your leadership team?
In the leadership team.
Okay. They're taking care of the whole English side. Okay.
Side. And so you're sitting and talking with them and convincing them that, hey, we need to sit down and study the teachings of Christ and start to internalize it and start to grow together as a leadership community, not just come together for some events. And it shook the church. Out of the 10, 8 of them, I saw them move from the front lines to go behind, and then they left. 8 of them.
So 8 out of the 10 didn't transition with you.
Yeah, didn't transition with me. And so at one point of time, I didn't have the elders, so-called age-wise elders that were with me when we started out in 2009. And so we sat down and listed out all those young guys in the congregation who I thought maybe potential that we can start these principles with. And so I had a list of 75 younger guys, cut their names through and made a list of 25 people,
Okay.
and then said that I'm not going to be preaching the evening service any longer, which was at 4:30.
What year is this by
This
now?
is 2009, 2010.
Oh, it's still in 2009.
Yeah,
Cause,
so it's like, it's 2010 now. I started out the process in 2009.
so it really didn't take very long for
Yeah,
those first
for-
8 of the 10 to really
leave, yeah.
back out.
Because they said, hey, we're not going to come and sit and study. We can be of great help, because they were the greatest contributors. They said, if you need money, we will give you the money. They would, you need any advice, we'll give you the advice, but we're not going to come and
I'm just thinking there's a whole bunch of relationship and emotion and a lot of,
yeah.
there's a lot of turmoil in that as you're trying to transition people.
I still have good relationships with them, but just that they would not shift.
Yeah.
They're part of other churches now, and
Yeah. Yeah.
they attend the churches.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you have a list of 25 people now that you think are potential
Yeah.
new leaders.
And they are
Pick us
all
up.
young, all within the age of 25. And I really start with becoming a disciple.
At the very beginning.
Yeah, at the very beginning.
What does it mean to be a disciple? So I've worked with those 25, if I'm not mistaken, through the years, right? Those are the 25. So you began at some point then to really take that English side,
Yeah.
keeping the gatherings that happen in the Sunday mornings, but then one of your first steps was you train the leaders, and then you began to have them meet
Yeah.
in their apartments,
Yeah.
in different places around once a week.
Once a week.
Or-
So
and how did that-
every Sunday evening, first and foremost, we actually still met at the church building. So that's where we met. And these guys were not even married. So it's like you're marrying them and you're seeing them.
Oh, I see. They're getting married
They're
in the
getting
process of
married.
them being developed as leaders. They're
You're
getting married,
you're marrying
having
them,
children.
having children, and it's almost like a process where the kids would come out, and they first would come. They would bring the bassinet and keep it on top
the
of
table while you're
and
doing trainings.
Then the child would come out of the bassinet and go around, and we know that when the child is actually looking out for electrical sockets to put their hands in, that's when they're out of that room into moving around, and you're
So you watch. So while you're developing the leaders, you're watching their children grow. You're watching them get married. You're
becoming
marrying
a
them.
family
You're becoming
first.
a family.
and then slowly becoming a
Sounds
family.
like real life.
Of families, yeah.
It's a real life. So, but what you've done is just so magnificent in the sense that you've taken the gatherings that happen, but then you've put them you dispersed them, you distributed them all around the city.
Yeah.
And they would then meet. At some point, then you took it and all these different family of families. Then they would meet as clusters in a particular rented hotel space or other rented spaces. So you had what, 5
now
or
we
4?
have 6.
You have 6.
So basically, what we have
6
done
hubs.
is,
Do you call them hubs or clusters?
we're
What do you call
calling
them?
them 3 hubs
Gatherings.
now.
What do you call them? 3
We
hubs.
have a northern hub, a central hub, and a southern hub with 6 clusters. And
6 clusters around them. Okay. And so then how many churches are in those clusters?
and 53 houses.
So 53 houses. So you have 53
53
houses.
nodes, 6 clusters, and 3 hubs.
3 hubs around this. So you've distributed
Yeah.
the church out. So, and then they come together in those in those hubs. It's the hubs, right?
So we keep pounding with the teaching that, hey, you gathering together as a network of churches. You're not gathering to be part of a religious service. So our main cluster centers, which has the Sunday morning gatherings for those who are in the houses, is not a church that they process.
I see. So the Sunday morning is really turned into, it's an equipping time.
It's, I would say,
or half
like
and half,
it would be an outreach time. There are Sundays that are there are evangelizing. There are Sundays that you have a drama that is happening to put forth a teaching. There are Sundays that you are actually coming together for various other purposes. So you're repurposing your Sunday not as a religious, ritualistic Sunday morning gathering, but you are processing it as a network of churches gathering together for common teaching, or network of churches gathering together to process.
Okay, so it's almost as if all the churches in Ephesus or all the churches in the Hierapolis Valley would come together, process the book of Colossians together.
Yeah,
that's an example I'm thinking of out of the biblical text.
And sometimes you still are processing people who are traditional and are trying to process the building as the church that they come to, but now they're caught in a web where we are talking about this is not the church.
Yeah,
place.
this is just an equipping
This
time.
is equipping time. This is just a gathering time. But the real churches is what is happening at home.
The thing, Chadwick, that I have just we've worked together for, of those 15 years, maybe 12 of them, and meeting people where they're at, and then moving them, even if their expectations are completely different, but just a process of always meeting people where they're at and moving them forward. Yeah. All of us are on a developmental pathway. All of us are growing. And the other thing is your team, those I'd love to just list all their names just because it just makes me, they are a team that goes out, that reminds you of Romans 16, 1 Corinthians 16, where you have a list of those names.
So while on one side this is happening, we really processing things together, and we discover it's just not about simple churches and church networks, but there's an apostolic team that's set apart, sent out. And so that's the...
I'd love to process more of that together, because you said we process together. That is an interesting phrase, because you're not just getting together to study the Bible, and not just getting together to have a talk about holding events. Mm-hmm. You're getting together to process or understand what God's doing in your church families. You're trying to understand the patterns. So it's more than a Bible study. You're trying to study the Bible in the sense of trying to look for the patterns of Acts that you're trying to replicate today.
That's true. As Ames, Iowa, and Ames Des Moines network of churches and Build International is just rolling out paradigm papers and encyclicals, we then go back and talk about it, have hermeneutic community discussions.
You go like
around
this.
It.
It's almost wrestling that you're talking
It's always
about.
wrestling.
Yeah.
It's never a very calm discussion.
It's never a calm discussion.
Because it's always clashing with the existing paradigms and the old paradigms, and so you're always going at it.
Yeah, but clash for the sake of understanding more and more clearly how we're supposed to participate.
That's true.
So you have to tell us then also now about One Church. So you've also worked at building a network of churches, or just maybe started with just simple relationships. But talk to us a little bit about One Church, because that's in different places around the world that you're also implementing these patterns from Acts.
So one of the papers that we had back in Ames is the New Roman Road.
The New Roman Road.
Yeah, so Paul actually went on that Roman road to progress the gospel, to plant, establish, and multiply churches. And so we really sat down and started to pray and process what is the new Roman road in the field that God has handed over to us. And so there were two spheres, or like in our sphere, there are two places that we wanted to focus on. And one was the Middle East, the Eastern Europe, the Northern Africa field. And then it's literally a road called the Golden Quadrilateral Highway of India. Just like how the Roman Empire actually built those roads, the government took a special interest in connecting Chennai to Mumbai to Delhi, Delhi to Kolkata, and Kolkata to Chennai. And we adopted, again, it's
I've heard that term from you guys. What's the name of it? What do you
the
call it?
Golden Quadrilateral Highway.
Golden Quadrilateral.
Yeah.
Because it's the 4 cities.
It's the 4 cities that connect with one another.
Okay. I'm finally just putting it together now. I've heard it in the video, and but I've not paid enough attention evidently.
So it all came from from church-based missions in combination with the New Roman Road and the cities strategy that we really, the cities and the shadow cities strategy that we really unfolded right here. And so we went down and we processed that together, and we said, hey, we need to plant and multiply churches in the cities and the smart cities of the Golden Quadrilateral Highway.
So that's happening in India, but it's also happening in the Middle East.
And there are certain networks that actually opened up in North America because during COVID, it happened during COVID because there's nobody able to travel back and forth, and the people didn't have buildings to process, and so they really started to process church within homes, but they didn't know how to go far beyond taking what is happening in the building into the homes. So we started to help them with the understanding that you just didn't take what's happening in the buildings back to the home, but that you need to really develop those communities. And that's how LA started out.
Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So how did you, as we close up here, Chadwick, how did you pull all those disparate pieces together? Because it sounds like you got LA, Middle East, you got the 4 cities that makes up that.
Yeah.
In India, you've got them in other places in Europe. How do you hold them together? Because it sounds like it could just be you got a little bit here, you got a little bit there, you got a little bit here. How do you begin to? Because in Chennai, you've got it's different, right?
Yeah,
it's different. Still the same patterns. It sounds like they still have to be a family.
Yeah.
They still have to understand the text. They still have to process their lives together. But in Chennai, you've got a base. You've got a base to come back to. You've got. So how do you do it when you're starting really fresh?
I think that's the reason why we need to truly discuss. This is not just an apostolic network, but a complex apostolic network, because each.
But what does that help? What does it help to call it complex?
Because it is
complex, but
in a sense, like.
How does that help you solve the problem?
Because it helped me solve the problem, because not every place is the same. And I can't really bring in one size fits all within the larger network. And so I need to really work with Chennai in shifting them in the paradigm one step ahead, because Chennai is a mega church transitioning and transforming into becoming a distributed church and a
complex network
of simple churches. While in LA, it is just a house that is in Palos Verdes, and I'm really helping them become a family of families, truly become a family, breaking of bread, having the meal at the center of it, and then they launch out in multiplying into Orange County. And that's our step. And so to really have these different people processing different things, but it's the same teaching that is actually filling all of them. But the application of the teaching is so different in each of its contexts. Mm-hmm. And to keep it going, I meet with the India team every week. And I meet with the North American team once in 2 weeks. And so the Middle East team, I've just joined along with the India team. So you just keep working with them through the principles. You're constantly teaching them on Zoom, and then you have discussions around it, and then they are implementing it. They are actually each of them drawing their steps towards aligning themselves more towards the paradigm.
I think I'm following you. You're saying you're meeting with the leaders regularly.
Regularly.
You're meeting with the leaders regularly. You're helping them understand how to become a family. I've also seen you when I was in Dubai that, you create videos, you create other tools that helps them understand that you had a video that showed spots of this is where a church is, this is where a church is. And you have them waving, they're greeting one another. You're doing things that, in a sense, like the New Testament, not even in a sense, it's a pattern in the New Testament where you have a team of leaders that's stirring amongst those different churches. You're training some as they come up, meeting them where they're at. And you're training them, and then others that are more like the one in Dubai. Is more seasoned, been there along with you in the journey for the 15 years, but all those leaders are how you're holding it together around one set of teachings.
And initially, it used to be leaders that actually were sent out of Chennai because these got established, and they were actually leading households. And then some of them had apostolic kinds of giftedness, and therefore we started to say, hey, do some network traffic with them, move to certain locations. A Jerry, hey, would you intentionally move your family from here to Pune and station there to multiply churches there? So these are not people.
So you send them out like Acts 13. Yes. You send them out.
Send them out.
And you say.
And rally them all as one team to be part of the same apostolic team. And you keep. And so there are people. So initially it used to be all sent from Chennai. Now it's no longer just Chennai because Pune is sending, Mumbai is sending, and so it's becoming very polycentric in that sending format.
Different centers that are sending out, different hubs.
Hubs that are sending. But it's like the old missionary paradigm would be, I've chosen a place that God has shown me and I'm going. Would you send me? Versus, hey, we are a team together, understanding the call, and we are having a field in which we are planting and multiplying churches. And therefore, it's no longer like I'm going, like we are going, and why can't you go here? Because the need is here first.
So it's the picture I'm having in my mind in this conversation is that you see a network of churches that function as families. So they function like Acts 2:42. You're helping them understand what that means. You have a team of leaders like Romans 16, 1 Corinthians 16 that are going out, that are stirring amongst these churches, some being raised up on the spot, many being raised up on the spot. And they are then getting to such mature points at times in different places that they are then sending their own people out.
Yeah.
But
they're sending it to the team.
That sounds like the New Testament.
Yes.
That sounds like churches as families, and it sounds like to the ends of the earth, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the uttermost parts, or the outermost parts.
Absolutely.
It goes.
Absolutely.
And so, what a journey.
Yes. Long way to go. A long way to go. A lot more.
We were talking about that last night, how much further there is to go. But, and there is such a long ways, but it's just in these moments, it's such to see how far we've come. I can't help but say that the book of Acts is real today.
Absolutely. I see those initial evidences of the book of Acts. Long way to go, but I see the framework in place, people getting the ideas and the concepts, still struggling back and forth because the old is powerful, but keep.
It was the same way in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
I mean, in the New Testament, it's the same way. They fought against those traditions.
So pressing on.
Yeah. All right. Well,
great.
Here's to the next decade,
a
couple decades that God has us doing this work.
Wonderful.
Together. All right.
God bless you.